Welcome everyone to this live class. So in this live class, we are going to look at how you can get 34 marks in mathematics paper 2 section A. We know that section A is out of 52 marks. So we are going to get 34 marks. So how can you get those 34 marks? So before I start, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, share the link to your friends who may be lighting on Monday so that even them they can benefit. So what are we covering in our video today? So in our video today, we are going to cover sets, which is a simple topic which can help you to get marks in paper 2. Second, we are going to cover computer. So I'm going to show you a trick which you can use to solve computer or the pseudocode in paper 2. Then next we are going to look at geometric progression. We are going to see how you can solve questions on geometric progression. And other questions as we progress on. So to begin our lesson tonight, we have our first topic which we are going to look at, which is pseudocode. So pseudocode, this is a question which carries 5 marks in paper 2. So why am I saying you should answer this question? So this question can help you to boost your marks in paper 2, because once you get these 5 marks, it can take you a long way. So now what do you need to understand on the pseudocodes? What are the main points which you need to understand? So the first thing which you need to understand is that a pseudocode comes in 2 ways. Either like this, where you are required to draw, or it comes as a already drawn, then you are required to take it back to this form. So now what do you need to know when you are drawing? So like our question here is saying, the program below is given in a form of a pseudocode. Begin, enter n. If n is less than 0, then display error, n must be positive. Else, sum is equals to n divided by 2, comma, the formula. Then, and if display sum, end. Draw a corresponding flowchart for the information given above. So here we are required to draw a flowchart. So how can we draw a flowchart? So in any question which you find, whenever you are drawing a flowchart, they are shapes which you need to understand. There are 4 important shapes which you need to understand. So what are those shapes which you need to understand? So the first shape which you need to understand is this shape, a parallelogram. So what can you enter in this shape? So whenever you see this shape, you need to understand that whatever you should enter in this shape are only 2 things. So what are those 2 things which are supposed to go in this box? So the first thing which you need to enter in this box is whenever there is display. So whenever you see display, remember that display should be put in this box. And the other one is enter. So where you see display or enter, remember what you should put is what is this box. Then moving on to our second shape, which is a diamond. So a diamond is also known as a decision box. So what you put in a decision box is that you put where you see if, because if you are making a decision, if n is less than 0 or if n is greater than 0. Yeah, so this is the second shape which you need to understand. So what you should put here is everything you see on if. Then the next important box you need to understand is the rectangle. Yeah, so this box is important because this is the box which we use to write the formula. So this is the box you'll be using to write the formula. Yeah, then the next box which you need to know is this circle. So what can you put in this circle? So in this circle, you are going to put either start or stop. Yeah. So these are the 4 shapes which you need to understand before solving questions on the pseudocodes. I guarantee you will find this question in an exam, and you have a high probability of finding a question on pseudocode which will come like this, which you have to draw the flowchart. So I require everybody to pay attention on these shapes, because once you miss the shape, you stand a chance of losing the 5 marks. So again, this is for formula. So whenever you see a formula, remember that you're supposed to enter it in this box. So these are the 4 important shapes you need to understand on the pseudocode. Yeah. Yeah, so now that we have understood the shapes, we are going to try and solve the question. Yeah, so we said the first thing you need to know is what shape to draw. So I told you that whenever you see begin, the circle you are supposed to draw is what? So whenever you see begin, the shape which you are supposed to draw is a circle. So you say a circle here. Then you say what? Since here we have begin, you also put what? Begin. Yeah. Then I told you that whenever you have enter or display, the symbol the shape which you are supposed to use is the parallelogram. So you are going to say now next here, parallelogram. So you are going to say what is here, enter, in. So the reason the flowchart, or the reason this question is simple, is because you just copy what is there and you paste it. So no need of doing what? No need of thinking. You just copy and pasting. Yeah. So here what you need to understand are just what? The shapes. Yeah. So now after we have entered n, next we are going to move to where if n is less than 0, then I told you that where you see if, you are required to make a decision. So whenever you see a decision box is a diamond. So this is a decision box. So wherever you see if, remember that the shape is a diamond. So here you put what? A diamond. So now here is where you have to pay particular attention. Why? So whenever we say a diamond, you are supposed to change this if into what? Is. Because you are making a decision, and a decision should have yes or no. So that's the reason we change if to is. So we are determining if our decision is yes or our decision is no. So here you say now, instead of if n is less than 0, you are going to say is n less than 0. That's what you are going to say. Then once you say that, you are going to write an arrow here, even here. So that's why we say this is a decision box. So the reason we say it is that because we're making a decision here. Then here, if you say yes, what does it mean when we look here? So here, the word then means yes. So you have to understand that whenever you see then, they are saying yes. So whenever you see then, what you should write is yes. So after writing yes, what is the next thing we are seeing? We are seeing what? Display error. N must be positive. So again, I told you, whenever you see display, what shape? Parallelogram. So we are going to write a parallelogram here. And we are going to say display error n must be positive. Yeah. So once you write like this, meaning you are done on the yes part. Now, how should we know that they are saying no? So whenever you see else, meaning no. So yeah, whenever you see else, remember it is saying no. Yeah. So here, you are going to say what? No. So after saying no, you are going to look at the next sentence with else. So we can see that the next sentence after else, it is what? It is a formula. So if this is a formula, meaning the box we are supposed to use is a rectangle. So here we are going to say, after we say no, we are going to write what? A rectangle. Yeah. Then we are going to enter the what? The formula. You say sum is equals to n over 2. We have 2a plus n minus 1 d. Yeah, the space was small. Then once you write the formula, you move on to the next what? The next sentence. So and if. So and if, remember, we don't write it in any box. We skip it. Then we go to what? Display. Again, I told you, whenever you see display, remember it's the parallelogram. So here we are going to put a parallelogram. Then at the end, you put a circle again. So begin and end are supposed to be in the same thing. So here an arrow. Then here you say what? Display sum. So this is how simple a flowchart is if it comes to draw it. Then here you can just bring it where? After here on display. Yeah. So this is how you can write a flowchart in paper 2. So this carries 5 marks, which means out of 34 marks, which I said we are going to, I'm going to show you how you can get them. We have covered 5 marks already. So for practice sake, let's try another question. So we have another question which came on pseudocode. So this question came in 2022 GCE. Again, it was talking about the same thing. So if you remember what I said, whenever you see start, you should remember it's what? A circle. So you're going to write a circle. Then you're going to say start. Then after writing the circle, the next thing which you're supposed to write is the what? The parallelogram. Why are we writing the parallelogram? Because we said what? It's for display and enter. So whenever we see display and enter, whatever you should write is parallelogram. So here now we say enter R, comma, R, comma, L. So don't change anything. Whatever is here is what you should do right here, except if. So since we have if, meaning the next symbol is a diamond, then we are going to change if to what? To is. So instead of us writing if, we are going to say is R greater than bigger R. So remember what I said here. So whenever you see then means what? Yes. Then else means what? No. So these are the two things which you need to understand. So meaning the first thing which is there is then. So we are going to say what? Yes. So after saying yes, you are going to ask yourself now, what is the next statement? So the next statement is print. So I forgot to also tell you print. Yeah. So if you see print, display, and enter, remember you are supposed to enter them in this box. So remember this. So now let's write the parallelogram. So now we say print error the value of R is not valid. Yeah. So once you write like this, meaning you are done, then you move on now to else. So I said else represents no. So after else, what are we seeing? We are seeing the formula. So what box? The rectangle. So now you say sum is equals to n r plus r l. Meaning we have written the formula. Next, we are going to say and if. Then remember, I told you and if doesn't have any box. You skip it. So this one, you do what? You skip it. Then we go to now print. So here, I said print should have what? The same parallelogram. So here you say now print S. Then at the final you write a circle and say stop. Yeah. So a quick revision. So these are the questions which which you're supposed to expect in your paper 2 on Monday, and I guarantee mostly 90% that the question you drawing the flowchart, which is this one. Then in case they bring a flowchart and they ask you to change, what you should understand are just two things. So whenever you are writing enter, enter should be what? So whenever you write enter, enter should be a bit inside after start. So that's the first thing you need to understand. Then if also should be a bit inside, not on the same line as enter, and enter should not be on the same line as start. But if display or print else, and they should be on the same line. Then print and enter, they should be on the same line. So the way they are like this is the way which you're supposed to write. So how can you memorize this, or how can you know this before you write your paper on Monday? So an easy trick is that you can get a paper where there is this, for example 2022 and 2023, then you try to solve it in the pseudocode. Then after solving it in the pseudocode, you can try it in what? In the flowchart. So this was our first question for our revision. Moving on to our next topic. So our next topic which we are going to revise today is matrices. Yeah. So this is the second topic for revision, which is matrices. So matrices in paper 2. So this topic I've combined it. So matrices and quadratic equation. Both these questions, if you answer them, you get what? 9 marks. So if you answer these questions, matrix and quadratic, you get what? 9 marks. So far we have covered the computer or the pseudocode as you know it. So I've covered the pseudocode, which is 5 marks. Next, we are going to cover what? The matrices and quadratic, which are carrying 9 marks. So if you solve these three questions correctly, already you have what? 14 marks in paper 2, section A. These questions, you can answer them within 15 minutes. They are simple to answer. Yeah, I'm just taking my time to explain so that even if you didn't study the entire month, you can able to get something. So on matrix, you need to understand how to calculate the determinant and also how to write the inverse. These are the two things which you need to understand on this topic. So how can we calculate the determinant of a matrix? So I've made a video on the determinant of a matrix which is on my channel. I'll post it in the group for revision. So the way we calculate the determinant is, so let's take our example, which is given that the matrix n is equals to x, 2, 2x, and 6. Find the value of x for which the determinant of n is 8. So here they want us to calculate the what? The determinant. They want us to calculate the value of x when we have the determinant of 8. So how can we calculate the determinant of, how can we calculate x if we have the determinant which is 8? Yeah. So the way we calculate it is, let's write, so we have our matrix n, which is x, 2, 2x, and 6. Yeah. So the way you calculate the determinant is by multiplying the major diagonal. So this is the major diagonal. So you multiply the major diagonal. So you are going to say x times 6, then minus, so you subtract the minor diagonal. So this is the minor. So I'm going to say x times 6, which is the major, minus the minor diagonal, which is 2x times 2, is equal to what? the determinant. So this is how we solve the determinant. So now, since in our question we already have the determinant, which is 8, we are going to replace what? Where there is d with 8. So we are going to say x times 6, we have 6x, minus 2 times 2x, we have what? 4x. Then we are going to say is equals to, we have what? 8. Then 6x minus 4x, we have what? 2x, which is equal to 8. Then we divide both sides by 2, which gives x to be 4 as our answer. So the value of x here is what? Is 4. So now, which brings us to our second question. Hence or otherwise, write the inverse. So how can you write the inverse of a matrix? So the way you can write the inverse of a matrix is that the way you can write the inverse of a matrix is that first we are going to find the values in this set, because remember this matrix has only what? X to x. We are supposed to know the value of x and 2x in the set. So we are going to say now, since x is 4, we are going to replace now. So set n is equals to, we have 4, 2 multiplied by 4, we have 2, we have 6. So if you multiply, you get your answer to be 4, 8, 2, and 6 as your matrix N. So now that we have found our matrix N, our next step which we are going to do is find the inverse. So finding the inverse, there are 2 steps which you need to know in order for you to find what? The inverse. What are those steps? So the first step is finding the adjoint of the matrix you are calculating. In our case, we are finding the adjoint of N. So how can you find the adjoint of N? So the adjoint of N is simple. First, you do what? You multiply the minor diagonal with a negative sign. So multiply the minor diagonal with negative. So this is the minor diagonal, and you are going to multiply it with what? A negative sign. So if you multiply this minor diagonal with a negative sign, we are going to have n is equals to negative 2 and negative 8. Yeah. Then next thing, the major diagonal, you are going to do what? You are going to swap it. So this major diagonal, we are going to swap it. We are going to say 6 and 4. So this is the what? The adjoint of set what? N. So now we have the adjoint and we have what? The determinant. So now we can solve the inverse of N. This is how simple matrix is. And remember, here they only bring what? The inverse and to find what? The value of x. In some cases, if the paper is easy, they can just bring for you to just find what? The determinant. So now let's solve the inverse. So you're going to say the inverse of n is equals to 1 over determinant times adjoint. Yeah. So this is the formula which we use. So since this is the last minute revision, no need of knowing this formula. So just know that you need to know the adjoint and what? The determinant. So now we are going to say our determinant is what? Is 8. So the determinant is this one. Don't get confused with the one we saw. This is the value of x and this is the determinant. So we are going to say 1 over 8 multiplied by this adjoint, and here don't get the set, get the adjoint, the one which we have swapped the major diagonal. The minor diagonal, which is this one, you multiply it by a negative sign. Yeah. So here you say 6, here you say negative 2, here you say negative 8, here you say 4. So here the next thing now is you multiplying this fraction with everything inside. So we are going to say here we have what? 6 over 8. Here we have negative 2 over 8. Here we have negative 8 over 8. Here we have 4 over 8. Yeah. So if you want, you can leave your answer here. They can mark you. But if you have time, you can do what? You can simplify it. So if we simplify, our n inverse will be what? 2 into 6, we have 3. Then 2 into 8, we have 4. Here we have negative 1. Here we have negative 1 over 4. Here we have what? Negative. Here we have 1 over 2 as our answer. So this is your what? Your inverse of matrix n. So this is how you can get another 4 marks. So matrix in paper 2, it carries 4 marks. So meaning we have gotten our 9 marks already. Just solving 2 questions, you have already gotten 9 marks in section A. So now moving on to our question 2, which is solve 5x squared minus 9x minus 4 equals to 0. So this is what? A quadratic equation. It carries 5 marks and it is one of the simplest topic again. So it carries 5 marks and it is one of the simplest topics again. So you need to pay particular attention, although it is simple and most people know it, but you need to pay particular attention. Yeah. So we are saying, the question is saying, solve the equation 5x squared minus 9x minus 4, giving your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So let's solve it together. So we are saying, so we are saying 5x squared minus 9x minus 4 is equals to 0. So the first step is make sure after the equal sign, the answer is 0. For example, if we had 5x squared minus 9x is equals to 4. Don't start solving whilst your quadratic equation is like this. You get your answer wrong. Why? Because you won't identify the letters. So let me show you how you can get this question wrong and how you can get it right. So if you have this, you will probably remember that we have the formula which we use whenever we are solving what? A quadratic equation. Most of you refer to it as the bus. So the formula is negative, my markers. So the formula is negative b, positive or negative, the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So don't worry about this formula. This formula is given to you at the cover page. So no need of you memorizing it. You just need to know what each letter means. So let me tell you what each letter means. So we have A, we have B, and we have C. Yeah. So A, always remember that A is the number which has x squared or any letter, because they won't bring every time x squared. They can bring p squared, q squared, t squared. Just remember that whenever you see a number accompanied by x squared, that should represent what? A. So in our case, it's what? Positive 5. Yeah. Then moving on to our second. So let's see. Bring it here. So moving on to our second letter, which is B. So B is the number which does not have x squared, but it has x. So this is the number which has only x. It is B, this one. So in our case, it's what? Negative 9. You get including the what? The sign. Get including the sign. So here we have negative 9. Moving on to our C. So C, you have already know that C is the number without anything. This number does not have a letter. So the number without the letter is what? C, which is in our case negative 4. Again, get with the sign. Don't leave the sign. So now, if, for example, you started solving like this, the equation was like this, meaning the last one, you could have gotten positive 4 instead of what? Negative 4, which would have given your answer wrong. So this is how you pick. A is the what? Number with x squared. Then B, number with x. Then C, number without a letter. Yeah, so this is how you can pick. So now that you know how to pick, the next step is what? Solving. So I hope you remember A is the number without, A is the number with x squared, B is the number with x, which is negative 9. You pick with the sign. C is the number without any letter, which is this one. Then I've told you, do not start solving, for example, if the equation is like this. Is equals to 4. Meaning, this is not the answer. Always make sure you turn it back to the normal. Yeah. So if it's like this, make sure you say 5x squared minus 9x. If 4 closes the sign, it becomes negative equals 0. So this is how you can do it. Yeah. So now let's solve the quadratic equation. So the quadratic equation, you can solve it in less than 5 minutes. So let's solve it. So you say, what is b? Negative 9. So don't forget the negative sign. Negative 9 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4. So what is b squared? B squared again is negative 9 squared minus 4. What is a? A is 5 times, what is c? Negative 4. Then over. Here we have what? 2. What is our a? Our a is 5. So next step is multiplying. Negative times negative, we have positive 9 plus or minus. What is 9 negative 9 squared? So this is paper 2. You are allowed to use the calculator. So you say 9 squared, we have 81 minus. So if you put a minus here, you hold on so to this minus. So now then you say, what is 4 times? So you say, what is 4 times 5 times negative 4? We have negative 8. So you say negative 8 here. Yeah. Then over 2 times 5, we have 10. Negative times negative, we have positive. So here we have 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 plus 80 over 10. Then 81 plus 80, we have 161. Then here you say 9 plus or minus 161 over 10. Then here you say now, what is the square root of 9? Or here you can say now, what is the square root of 161? So you say 9 plus or minus the square root of 161. We have what? 12 point. So we have 12.6885. So you can hand here after 4 significant figures, because this is paper 2, and in paper 2 they are strict. You have to leave your answer to, so your answer always leave it to 3 significant figures. Why? Because this is an important instruction. That's why they have put it on the first cover page. It is very, very important. So you can end here. Then you say over 10. So here most pupils make the mistake of dividing before what? Finding the square root. So don't divide before finding the square root. This 10 you're supposed to divide after you have added and subtracted. Here you say 9 plus 12.6885 divided by 10, or here we are talking about x. Don't forget 9 minus 12.6885 divided by 10. X is equals to, so now if we say 9 plus 12.6885 equals divided by 10. You are having what? 2. So we're having 2.168. So again, remember, you're supposed to leave it to how many significant figures? 3 significant figures. So count 1, 2, 3. Then after counting, ask yourself, is the number after this greater than 5 or 5? Yes, it is. So we're going to give 1 to the previous number, giving our answer to be 2.17. So always leave your answer to 3 significant figures or 2 decimal place. 3 significant figures or 2 decimal place. Then let's solve the other part. So this is the first answer. Then here you say O. Then again you go to your calculator and you say 9 minus 12.6885 is equals to divided by 10. You have negative. So we have my markers. So we have negative 0.368. So again, count 1, 2, 3. But this question was saying 2 decimal place. So we are going to stop here. Again, ask yourself, is the number greater than 5 or 5? Yes, it is. So we are going to give 1 here. So we're going to say negative 0.37 as our answer. So these were our 2 answers for the quadratic equation. So this is how you can solve simple quadratic equation. So we have covered what? Matrices and quadratic equation, which means you have gotten your first 14 marks just from 3 questions. This is how simple you can pass paper 2 if you follow what I'm showing you here. So now, for the sake of practice, let's solve the second question on matrix and quadratic equation. So this question I'll be fast because I've explained how you can go about it in the first part. Yeah. So again, we are saying the first thing is you write what? The matrix. So we are saying matrix P is equals to 7x negative 2 negative x 1. So again, here the question is saying, given that the matrix P is equals to 7x negative x negative 2 and 1, find the value of x for which the determinant of P is negative 10. So here the determinant they gave us was what? Negative 10. And they have asked us to find the inverse of P. So here we are calculating the inverse of P now. So how can we calculate the inverse of P? So the way we calculate the inverse of P is that I've showed you here. So the first thing we are supposed to find first, the value of x, which we don't know. So what I told you. So we said that the way we calculate the determinant is multiplying the what? The major diagonal. So we are going to say 7x times 1 minus the minor diagonal, which is negative x times negative 2. Then you go back to the question. What is our determinant? Our determinant you have been given what? Negative 10. So you say negative 10 is equals to 7x times 1 we have what? So 7x times 1, we have 7x minus negative x times negative 2, we have positive 2x. Then you say negative 10. 7x minus 2x, we have 5x. Then you say divide by 5, divide by 5. X is equals to negative 2. So I have solved our value, which is negative 2. The next step is doing what? Is finding what? The inverse. So for finding the inverse, I'll show you the first step. So finding the inverse, the first step is finding the what? So the first step is find the adjoint. So what I said is the adjoint, you just what? Multiply the minor diagonal with negative. Then swap the major diagonal. So once you know these two things, you will never go wrong on finding the inverse of a matrix or finding the adjoint. So step 1, you need to swap the major diagonal. Step 2, you need to do what? You need to multiply the minor diagonal with a negative sign. So now how can we do that if we don't know the numbers? So the first step is finding the numbers. So we said x is 2. So we are going to say now, so matrix P is equals to 7 multiplied by negative 2. Then here I have negative 2. Then here I have negative multiplied by negative 2. So here most pupils, they can just put what? Negative 2 at all. Since already x as a negative, no need for me to put a negative. That's wrong. This negative is not the same as the negative we found. Remember, this is negative x. And this is what? X. So meaning there are two different things. Next is 1. So here you are going to multiply, which is a simple step. 7 times 2, we have 14. Negative times negative, we have positive 2. Here we have negative 2. Here we have 1. So now moving on to our first step of calculating the what? The adjoint. So how can you calculate the adjoint? So the way we calculate the adjoint is that you do what? You do what? Multiply the minor diagonal with a negative sign. So which one is our minor diagonal? Our minor diagonal is this one. So if we multiply it with a negative sign, we are going to have adjoint P is equals to, so this is the positive number. So this is the positive number. If we multiply it with a negative number, we're going to have negative 2. Then this is the negative number. If we multiply negative times negative, we are going to have positive 2. So remember this step. If you have a negative number, if you multiply it with a negative number, you get a positive. Then here, the minor, we said you swap. So here we have 14, then here we have 1. But if we swap, here we have what? 1, and here we have 14. This is how you do what? You swap. So now after swapping, we have the adjoint, which can help us now to calculate the inverse. So you say P inverse is equals to 1 over the determinant times adjoint P. So what is the adjoint? This is the adjoint. What is the determinant? The determinant is negative 10. So now let's solve. So we are going to say 1 over negative 10 multiplied by the adjoint, which is 1, negative 2, 2, 14. Then you are going to just take 10 inside. So you are going to say 1 over 10, 2 over 10, negative 2 over 10, 14 over 10. Then here the next step is simplify what you can simplify. So here we can see that 1 over 10 cannot be simplified, but this one can be simplified. We have what? Negative 1 over 5. Yeah, and this can also be simplified. We have 1 over 5. This can also be simplified to 7 over 5. But remember, I made the mistake. Negative 10 is negative, not positive, sorry. So negative 10 here is negative. So here is negative 1 over 5. Here is positive, the way I wrote it. Then since negative and no, sorry, this is, here is supposed to have negative 1 over 10. Then here is supposed to have 1 over 5, sorry. Yeah, here is supposed to have 1 over 5 because we have negative and negative, they'll cancel each other. Then here is supposed to have negative 7 over 5, which means you have solved your inverse. So this is how you can get your 14 marks. So make sure you go through this video again tomorrow. Yeah. So you might fast forward to a topic which you do at you understand. So you might skip. If you know matrix, don't waste time watching matrix. Go to the topic which you don't understand, because this video is to help you score the 34 marks. If you score the 34 marks, no need of worrying for paper 1, because if you score 34 in section A and you score 30 in section B, or maybe 40, because those questions are known, you have passed, meaning you have 70 in paper 2 in your last minutes. Imagine what you could have done if you had the month. So this is the last minute, and I'm helping you to revise this thing. So make sure you have time tomorrow to watch the video, because tomorrow we are going to start section B. So moving on to our next question. So our next question, which is very, very important, it's sets. So sets is another question which you need to solve on Monday in section A. So this is another simple topic. It's very, very simple. Sets and geometric progression. It's simple, but most students skip it, and it carries a lot of marks. When you combine sets and geometric progression, these two questions alone carries 10 marks. These questions alone, they carry 10 marks. These two questions. So meaning if you solve these two questions and you solve these pseudocode and those two questions, if you solve these 5 questions collectively, you will have how many marks? You will have 24 marks just from 4 questions. and they are simple. From what I've explained, you can even notice that these questions are simple if you revise. So after the video, make sure you inbox me so that I can add you to the group. I'll post practical questions which you're supposed to practice, and you submit your answer tomorrow so that I see where you have lacking behind. Yeah. So now let's see solve the sets part. So this sets part is saying, so remember, on the sets they like bringing what? They like bringing two types of sets. Either you have to draw a Venn diagram, or you have to deal with it, something like this. So the reason I picked this one is that the question for Venn diagram is already on my channel. This one, you need to pay particular attention. Make sure you watch it. Yeah. Why do I say so? Because I guarantee you this type of set question has a high mark or has a high chance of appearing in your paper 2 on Monday. And if you miss it, you miss your mark. I know most of you paper 1 was difficult, but this is your time and chance to redeem yourself in paper 2, because what I'm showing you are the easy 34 marks out of 52 in paper 2 section A. So let's start. Learners in grade 10 class were asked the type of drinks they liked. The Venn diagram shows their response. So we have a Venn diagram showing grade 10 students. We have Fanta, we have Coke, and we have Sprite. So these are the three types of drinks. The first question is that, given that 40 learners liked Fanta, find the value of X. So they are saying that if 40 learners liked Fanta, find the value of X. So how can we find the value of X? So we go back to our Venn diagram and circle the circle which has Fanta. So if you circle the circle which has Fanta, which is this one. So if you can see, this entire circle represents what? Fanta. So if you see that that entire circle represents Fanta, we are going to say Fanta, we have what? 40 learners. So we are going to say, what is in Fanta? So this is our first question. Yeah, so this is our first question. We are going to say 17. So we are going to say, let me write it here. So we are going to say question 1. So we are going to say 17 plus x plus 2 plus x plus x is equals to what? 40. So just take whatever is in what? In this set. Don't take anything, because they just said whatever is in Fanta. Those learners who liked Fanta in their 40, and the circle which is representing Fanta is 17x plus 2x and x. Yeah. So the second step which you need to do here is group the like terms. Whatever has x, you group them together. So we have 17 plus x plus 2 plus x plus x is equals to 40. So if we group the like terms, we have 17 plus 2 plus x plus x plus x is equals to 40. Then 17 plus 2, 17 is 18, 19. So 17 plus 2 have 19 plus. Then how many x do we have? 1, 2, 3. So we have 3x. So remember, addition and multiplication, they are different. If we are multiplying, it could have been x cubed. But if we are adding, you just count the number of x is equal to 40. Then this closes the other side. You have 3x is equals to 40 minus 19. So you have a calculator. You can use a calculator. So you say 40 minus 19, we have 21. So here you have 21, here you have 3x. Then you divide by 3, you divide by 3. So x is equals to 3 into 21, we have what? 7 as our answer. So x was 7. So we have solved our first question, which is find the value of x. Now the second question is find the total number of learners in the class. So now we are supposed to find the total number of learners in the class. So how can you find the total number of learners in the class? Okay. So remember, I have found the value of x. So our x is equals to what? 7. So don't forget our x is equal to 7. So now they said the total number of learners in class. So you are going to add everything. That's why it is 1 mark. Here it's supposed to just add. So remember, Fanta, you already know how many learners are in Fanta. So no need of again saying 17 plus x plus 2 plus x. No, we have already gotten our answer, which is 40. So you're just going to say the total number. So I'm going to say the total number So we're going to say the total number is equals to Fanta, we had 40 plus 5, which is for Coke, plus this one, x minus 2 plus 3 plus 7. So most of you are wondering, why are we including 7? So the reason we are including 7 is because these learners were in grade 10, but they didn't like any of the 3 drinks. But the question is just saying, find the total number of learners in a class. So meaning you have to include even those who did not like anything. So here we have already calculated the value of x. So I'm going to replace it with what? 7. So it's a 40 plus 5 plus 7 minus 2 plus 3 plus 7. Yeah. And you have a calculator. So you say 40 plus 5 plus 7 minus 2 plus 3 plus 7, which gives us 60 learners. So 60 learners were at this school, meaning you have solved your question 2. So moving on to question 3. So question 3 is saying, find how many learners did not like Fanta. So how many learners did not like Fanta? So they are asking about the learners who didn't like Fanta. So the learners who didn't like Fanta are those learners which are not present in this set. So you do wise to do what? To cover the set so that we know those students who didn't do what? Who didn't like Fanta. Yeah. So if you cover this part for Fanta, you find that you have 5 from Coke plus x minus 2, those that liked Coke and Sprite. Then we also have 3, then plus 7. So again, remember, x we have found it to be what? 7. So you're going to say 5 plus 7 minus 2 plus 3 plus 7. Again, you have your calculator. We have 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 7, which will give us 20 learners. Yeah. So this is how simple the question of sets is. Next, we are going to look at how many students liked 2 types of drinks only. So here our question 3 is saying 2 types of drinks only. So how can you solve 2 types of drinks only? So if you go back to our Venn diagram, when they say 2 types of drinks only, they are saying only. So whenever you hear the word only, ignore what is on the middle. So when they say only, you do what? You do wise to ignore what is on the middle. Why do we ignore what is on the middle? The reason is that they have included only, but if they said at least, we could have included what? This part. So whenever you hear at least, include it. But if you hear only, remove it. Yeah. So if we remove this part, you find that those people who liked 2 types of drinks were what? We have x plus 2 plus, we have x plus, we have also x minus 2. Remember, we solved the value for x. We said this what? 7 plus 2 plus 7 plus 7 minus 2, which gives us 21 learners. Yeah. So this is how easy if a question on sets comes like this. So moving on to another question for the sake of practice, we have this one. So this one is saying the Venn diagram shows the number of elements of set P and Q and R. So this is a different type of question on sets, and you can find it like this. So if they bring like this, it is a simple one, but if they bring like this, you need to pay particular attention to this type of question. Yeah. So how can we solve this question? So this question is what is known as a subset. So this set has another set inside it. That is what is known as a subset, a set within a set. Yeah. So the first question is saying, find the value of x such that number in P is what? Equal to 18. So this means what? Number of elements. So whenever you hear the word number of elements, whatever should come into your mind is you're supposed to add them. Number of elements you're supposed to add. So here what we are going to be doing is what is known as addition. We are going to be adding. Remember. So our first step is to find the value of x. They have told that all the elements in P are equal to 18. So we are going to draw P. So this is P. So we are going to say x plus x plus 1 plus 2x plus 1 is equals to 18. That's what they have told us. Then the next step is grouping the like terms. So what are the like terms we have? We have x plus x, 2x. 2x plus 2x, we have 4x. 1 plus 1, we have 2. Is equals 18. Then here you do what? Group the like terms. We have 4x equals, these two go that side. We have 18 minus 2. We have 4x is equals 18 minus 2. We have what? 16. Divide by 4, divide by 4. X is equals to 4. So here our answer is 4. So the value for x is 4. So now that we have found the value of x to be 4, we are going to solve now the rest of the question, since we have known the value of x, meaning you have gotten your first 2 marks. Simple as that. That's why I'm saying these questions are simple. Don't ignore them. Paper 2, go for the simple one. Make sure you get a lot of marks in section A for you to balance it with paper 1. Yeah. Then our second part is find the number of elements in R complement. Find the number of elements in R complement. So this complement means find all the elements which are not in R. So they don't want us to include R. So we have what? We have 12 plus x plus 2x plus 1. Then remember we have found the value for what? For x. So we're going to say 12 plus, what is x? X is 4 plus 2 times 4 plus 1, which is giving us what? So if we multiply those numbers, if we add, we are getting 12 plus 4 plus 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1. We are getting what? 25 as our answer. So here we say 25. Yeah. Then moving on to our question 2. So question 2 is saying number of elements in R union Q. So R union Q. So whenever you see union, they are telling you to combine the elements. So we are combining now the elements which are present in R and the elements which are present in Q. So if you draw a circle on Q, you can see that 12 and x are in Q. Then x plus 1 are in R. So we are going to say 12 plus x plus 1, which is in R. Then we know the value for x. So we are going to say 12 plus 4 plus 4 plus 1, which is 12 plus 4 plus 4 plus 1. It's giving us 21. So we have 21 here. Moving on to the next one. Number in P intersection Q complement. So here they want us the number of elements which are not in P intersection Q complement. So the first thing you need to do is identify where P intersection Q is. Before identifying where there is P intersection Q, you need to identify the meaning of intersection. So when they say intersection, they are saying what is common in P and Q. What is common in set P and Q? So what is common in set P and Q is what? X. So X is the only value which is what? Common. Now they are saying remove what is common and write what remains. So if we remove this part, we are going to remain with what? 12 plus 2x plus 1 plus what is inside P, which is x plus 1. Then again, we know the value of x. So we say 12 plus 2, what is x? X is 4 plus 1 plus 4 plus 1, which gives us, so 12 plus 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 plus 4 plus 1. We have 26. Yeah. So this is how you can solve a question on sets if it comes like this. Meaning you have gotten your another 5 marks. So this is how you can be going. Simple as that. So make sure I start with a simple question, because if you start with a hard question, it will affect how you solve the simple question. But if you start with simple questions, you will gain that confidence to solve hard questions. So moving on to our our second topic, which is geometric progression. So geometric progression is one of another important topic. So for this topic, geometric progression and probability, we are going to do it in the morning. So this topic we are going to do it in the morning tomorrow. So this is where our live session for the first part, how to get 34 marks. So here we have already covered on how you can get how many marks. So I have covered one, what? Computer or pseudocode. Which is 5 marks. Next, we also have covered the quadratic, which is 5 marks. We have also covered sets, which is 5 marks. We have also covered what? Matrix, which is 4 marks. So we have covered 19 marks in our video today. So 19 marks minus 34. So we have what? 15 marks to cover tomorrow morning. So those 15 marks, where are they coming from? So the first mark is coming from geometric progression. Then the second is coming from simplify. And express as a single fraction. And probability. So this is where the rest of the 15 marks are coming from. They are coming from geometric progression, simplify, express as a single fraction, and probability. So in the next video, I'm going to cover these 3 topics. And we also touch part of section B, how you can solve those 4 marks. So geometric progression, just for those that are curious, it carries 7 marks. So this is one of the question which carries a lot of marks in paper 2. So geometric progression alone carries 7 marks. Simplify carries 2. Express as a single fraction carries 3. And probability carries 5. So altogether you have what? 7 plus 5 plus 5. You have 17 plus the 19 you have covered. You have 36 marks. So you can score 36 marks easy. So the 36 marks are simple. We haven't touched those questions you say that they are difficult. Vectors. Yeah, just vectors which they say it's difficult. And a bonus, if you know even construction, then section A you can get even 40. And if you get 40 in section A, which means if you get section B 40, you have an 8. When you have an 8 in paper 2, I guarantee you, no examiner will be able to fail you. You have already passed if you get an 8 in paper 2. Yeah, no matter what you got in paper 1. But yeah, if you get 8 in paper 2, which you get if you watch my 2 revision session. The next one will be tomorrow, where I will look at section A, the remaining 17 marks, and section B, how you can get the 42 marks. How you can get the 48, sorry. Yeah. So section A is 52. Then section B, you have 48. Yeah. So just aim for section A, 36 and above. Why am I saying 36 and above? These are the simple questions I've confirmed. 36 marks, they are simple questions. Maybe you can struggle on what? On vectors, but these questions I've taught you, you can never struggle. And tomorrow I'll teach you probability and show you how probability also is simple. So don't forget. Then also the 48 marks. Maybe if your race or time lines out, you are able to get that. Even a 66 is enough to make you pass. Get a 5, get a 4. So make sure tomorrow you subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button so that you don't miss when we have our live session and also when our new video is uploaded.